I never thought my life would change because of one simple phone call. Yet that is exactly what happened on a warm Sunday morning when my son Daniel called me with a voice that carried both excitement and worry. It was one of those moments when you can feel something new pulling your family forward, but you also sense a shadow following behind it. Dear listeners, before we begin this difficult story, I want to ask you a favor. If my story resonates with your heart, please like this video and subscribe to the channel and write in the comments which city or state you are listening from. It warms my spirit to know how far my voice travels. Happy listening. I remember sitting at my kitchen table with a cup of tea in my hands. The sun was bright, the birds were loud, and everything felt peaceful. Then my phone rang and everything inside me shifted. "Mom," he said, "could you do me a small favor? I really need your help today." His voice trembled a little, not in fear, but in the way a person sounds when they are trying to hold too many things together at once. Daniel had always been that kind of person, a quiet man with a gentle heart, someone who tries to solve every problem before anyone else even notices it. I smiled, even though he could not see me. "Of course, Daniel, what do you need?" He took a breath. "My wife's parents, they are finally coming to visit us, and I want everything to be perfect. They're staying for the weekend, and I thought maybe you could stay at a hotel nearby just for tonight, so the house feels calm for them." For a second, I felt the world slow down. A hotel. I had never been asked to leave the house for anyone, not by my son, not by anyone, but he continued quickly. "It's not because of you, Mom. You know that. It's just her parents can be very particular, and they take things the wrong way. I don't want any tension. Please understand." I understood more than he realized. I understood that my son was trying to keep peace in a house that was already breaking. I understood that he was walking on eggshells around his wife's family, and I understood that his request came from fear, not from disrespect. Still, I cannot pretend it didn't sting. I nodded slowly, even though no one could see it. "All right, Daniel, if that helps you, I will go." When I hung up, my hands trembled, not from anger, not from sadness, but from a strange, heavy feeling, the feeling that something was wrong, but I didn't yet know what. I packed one small bag, just a few clothes, some toiletries, and the book I had been meaning to finish. As I zipped the bag closed, I told myself this was just one night, one simple night to help my son. I tried not to let the thought grow roots inside me. Daniel picked me up and drove me to a nearby hotel. He kept saying, "Thank you, Mom," over and over again, as if he was afraid I might change my mind halfway. I noticed the way his fingers tapped nervously on the steering wheel. I noticed that his eyes were tired, even though it was only morning. When we reached the hotel, he hugged me tightly. "I'll call you later," he promised. I believed him. I checked into my room. It was simple, clean, quiet, the kind of room that feels empty even when you are inside it. I sat on the edge of the bed, listening to the silence, trying to convince myself I had done the right thing. But 1 hour later, just 1 hour, a message popped up on my phone. It was from Daniel's wife, Emma. "Can we talk?" she wrote. "It's urgent. My parents are asking for a divorce." My heart stopped. A divorce after only 1 hour? What could possibly have happened? I called Daniel immediately. He didn't answer. I called again, still nothing. Then another message came from Emma. "Please come back to the house. Something has gone very wrong." And in that moment, I knew my simple act of stepping aside had opened the door to something much bigger, something painful, something deep, something that would change every part of our family. I grabbed my bag, took a deep breath, and left the hotel room. I had no idea what waited for me at the house, but I knew one thing: whatever happened in that 1 hour, it was only the beginning. When I stepped out of the hotel lobby, the sunlight felt sharper than before. It was as if the world had shifted in the short time I had been away from home. I walked quickly toward the taxi stand, my heart pounding with every step. I kept wondering what could have happened inside that house, my son's house, my daughter-in-law's house, within only 1 hour. 1 hour. It kept echoing in my mind like a warning. I finally got a taxi, and as soon as I sat inside, I told the driver the address with a shaky voice. He nodded politely and began driving. I looked out the window, watching familiar streets pass by, but everything looked different. I could not shake the feeling that I was returning to something broken. The driver seemed to sense my anxiety. "Tough day?" he asked gently. I gave a small smile. "Unexpected day." He nodded and did not press further. I was grateful for his silence. As the car rolled into my son's neighborhood, my stomach tightened. I felt like someone approaching a door that held both answers and heartbreak. When the car stopped, I saw Emma, my daughter in law, standing outside the house. Her face was pale, her eyes swollen as if she had been crying. She kept looking toward the door, then back at me, as if she wasn't sure who she needed more at that moment. I stepped out of the car slowly, my bag still in my hand. She walked quickly toward me, her voice trembling. "Thank God you came back." "Emma," I said softly, "what happened?" "Where is Daniel?" She swallowed hard. "He's inside. My parents are too. They're arguing, and they're saying things I never imagined they would say." I felt a cold throb run through my chest. "Arguing about what?" She hesitated. Her eyes drifted away from mine as if she was afraid I would judge her. "It started when they arrived. We welcomed them inside, and they immediately began looking around, criticizing the house, the furniture, the way we arranged things. My mother made a comment about the curtains. My father complained about the smell of the candles. It was nothing new, but Daniel didn't handle it well this time. I didn't interrupt her. I let her speak because I could tell she wasn't only explaining the situation, she was trying to understand it herself. "Then they started asking about you," she continued softly. "They wondered why you weren't there to greet them. And when I told them that Daniel asked you to stay at a hotel, they were shocked. My mother thought it was disrespectful. My father said it made him uncomfortable." I blinked slowly. "They were upset that I wasn't here," she nodded, "because they thought you should be part of the family welcome. They said it looked like we were hiding something or hiding you, and then everything exploded." I felt my breath catch. This whole time, I thought my absence would make things easier, yet somehow my leaving had made things worse. I took a slow breath. "Emma, did Daniel explain why he wanted me to stay at a hotel?" Her face softened with guilt. "He did. He told them he wanted to avoid tension, but that made things even worse. My father took it as a sign that I told Daniel something negative about them. My mother thought Daniel was blaming them for everything. They became defensive. Daniel became frustrated, and then my father said he wanted to leave." I looked toward the front door, feeling a heavy pressure building inside me. "And the divorce? Why did they speak about divorce?" She closed her eyes for a moment, as if the memory itself hurt. "My father said that if Daniel cannot respect his wife's parents, then he doubts Daniel respects his wife." And my mother agreed. She said the marriage was built on weak foundations. Then she told me that if this is the way Daniel solves problems, by pushing people out, then maybe I should reconsider being married to him. A tremor rushed through me. Emma's lips quivered. I told them that's too far, that it was just a misunderstanding. But they kept repeating the word divorce like it was the only option. I reached out and gently held her arm. "Emma, I am so sorry." She shook her head. "No, it isn't your fault. This whole thing, it became bigger than it should have, bigger than all of us." I took a deep breath. "Where is Daniel?" "In the living room," she whispered, "talking to my father, or trying to." The front door was slightly open. Inside, I could hear raised voices, not yelling, but sharp, firm, bitter voices. Voices with old wounds behind them. I pushed the door open and stepped inside. The living room was tense. Daniel stood near the coffee table, his hands clenched into fists. Emma's father sat on the sofa, his back straight, his expression cold. Emma's mother stood near the window, staring out as if she wanted to escape the words flying across the room. As soon as Daniel saw me, his eyes widened. "Mom," he said softly, almost ashamed. I gave him a small, calm nod. "I'm here." He swallowed hard and looked away. He was hurt, he was confused, and beneath all that, he was scared. Emma's father looked at me, his expression unreadable. "So you are Daniel's mother?" I nodded politely. "Yes, sir, and I am sorry if my absence caused trouble." He raised an eyebrow. "Your absence was not the trouble. Your son's decision was." Daniel stepped forward. "I was trying to avoid stress. I thought." His father-in-law cut him off with a sharp wave of his hand. "You were trying to avoid having us meet your mother? Do you think we are children? Do you think we cannot handle people?" Daniel's jaw tightened. "That's not what I meant." "Then what did you mean?" the older man demanded. I took a slow, deep breath. "Please," I said gently, "may I speak for a moment?" All eyes turned toward me. I walked toward the center of the room, feeling a strange peace settle over me, not the peace of comfort, but the peace of clarity. "Daniel asked me to stay at a hotel," I began softly, "because he wanted everything to be perfect for your visit. He knows you value order and calm. He wanted to avoid anything that might disturb that. His intention was kindness, not disrespect." Emma's mother narrowed her eyes slightly. "We did not want to be treated like guests who needed special arrangements." I nodded. I understand that, truly, but Daniel reacted from fear, not fear of you personally, but fear of failing. Fear of doing something wrong, fear of disappointing you. He loves your daughter deeply, and sometimes when people love deeply, they make clumsy choices. Emma looked down, her shoulders sinking. I continued, my voice warm, quiet. I did not mind going to the hotel. I did not feel pushed away. I did it because my son asked, because I trust him, because I want peace in his home. If my presence or absence creates pain, I will fix it however I can. Emma's father stared at me for a long moment. Then his shoulders relaxed just a little. So you were not offended? He asked. Of course not, I said. I have lived long enough to know that misunderstandings begin where assumptions begin. Daniel assumed you would feel more comfortable if I gave space. You assumed he was hiding me. Both sides acted with emotion, not with the full picture. A brief silence followed. Daniel finally exhaled. Dad, Mom, Emma, I wasn't trying to hurt anyone. Emma's mother looked at him, her voice softer now, though still heavy with emotion. We simply wanted to be welcomed, not managed, not kept away from part of the family. I'm sorry, Daniel said quietly. Truly, I only wanted today to go smoothly. Another silence, long, dense, full of thoughts. Emma's father stood up slowly. Maybe we reacted too strongly. Emma's mother touched her husband's arm gently. We came here with high expectations, perhaps too high. But then her eyes returned to Daniel. Still talking about divorce, Emma cut her off softly. Mother, please, that word hurt me more than anything, and it hurt Daniel. Her mother's expression softened. We did not mean it literally, she said softly. We were frustrated, and loud words come out when hearts are tight. Daniel sank onto the sofa, covering his face with both hands. I stepped closer to him and placed a gentle hand on his back. It's all right, I whispered. You're not alone, he let out a shaky breath. I just wanted to do the right thing, Mom. I nodded. I know, and sometimes the right thing becomes the wrong thing when fear guides it. Emma sat beside him. Her voice trembled as she spoke. Daniel, I should have told my parents not to overreact. I should have supported you more. He looked at her with tired eyes. We both tried. It just didn't go the way we expected. Her father cleared his throat. I think we should have started this visit differently. Maybe we rushed to judge. That was wrong on our part. Her mother nodded. Yes, we were harsh, too harsh. I took a deep, steady breath, and now we can choose a new direction. For the first time since I walked in, the room felt softer, like a storm that had shifted into a drizzle, but something still felt unsettled. Something heavy lingered behind Emma's eyes, something she had not yet said, and I sensed this was not the end of the problem. Only the beginning of the truth. The storm inside the living room had calmed, but the air still felt thick, like there were words hanging above us that no one had said yet, words that someone was afraid to speak. I could feel it in the quiet glances Emma kept giving her mother. I could feel it in the way Daniel sat stiffly beside her as if he expected something else to fall apart. Emma's parents sat across from each other, not touching, not looking at one another. It was strange. I had always imagined them as a united couple, strict maybe, but united. But the silence between them was colder than anything I had prepared myself for. Emma's father cleared his throat. I think we all need a moment to breathe, he said softly. Maybe we should sit down and talk properly. Everyone agreed quietly. I took a place in the armchair near the corner. Emma and Daniel sat on the sofa together. Her parents sat opposite them. It looked like a family meeting, but one where the lines between hurt and healing were painfully blurry. For a while, no one said anything. Then Emma spoke, her voice barely above a whisper. Mother, Father, there's something I need to say. Her mother looked at her with concern. What is it? Emma took a shaky breath. You didn't just react strongly today. You reacted like you were looking for a reason, like something else was going on, something bigger. Her father frowned slightly. Emma, that's not fair. She shook her head slowly. No, it is fair, because you both don't fight like this. You don't talk about divorce like that, not unless something is happening between you. A silence fell so heavy I thought the room itself might collapse under it. Her father turned his head away, rubbing his forehead. Her mother's eyes filled with water instantly. Daniel looked confused. What does she mean? He asked gently. Emma swallowed hard. Mother, Father, please. If something is wrong, we deserve to know. You came here acting like Daniel and I are the ones failing. But are you both okay, truly? Her father opened his mouth, then closed it. He looked at his wife with an expression that held both anger and sadness. Emma's mother wiped her eyes quickly as if she was embarrassed to be seen crying. It's nothing you need to worry about, she whispered. Emma's voice rose slightly, trembling. Mother, how can you say that after the things you said today? You talked about divorce. You told me to reconsider my marriage. Why would you say such things if you didn't mean them? Why would you use such a painful word if you weren't feeling it yourself? Emma's father lowered his head. Daniel shifted beside her, confused but gentle. Is there something you want to tell us? Her parents exchanged a long, quiet look. I watched their eyes carefully. There was history in that look, a heavy, painful history. Her mother took a small, unsteady breath. There are things between your father and me that we haven't discussed with you, things that have been difficult, but it's not something we wanted to bring into your home. Her father's voice was low, almost ashamed. We didn't mean to talk about divorce, it just came out. But why? Emma whispered. What is happening between you two? Another silence. Then her mother broke down in tears. Her father reached for her hand. She hesitated, then let him hold it. We are not doing well, her father admitted softly. We haven't been for a long time. And coming here today, seeing you both as a young couple, it touched something in us, something painful. Emma's shoulders sagged. I had no idea. Her mother wiped her tears, but more kept coming. I didn't want you to know. I didn't want to bring our problems into your life, but when we walked in and your husband said his mother wasn't here, it felt like everything in our marriage, everything broken, was suddenly right in front of me again. I frowned slightly. How would my absence remind you of that? I asked gently. Her mother hesitated, but her father answered for her. Because we both came from families where our mothers were pushed aside, where respect was only shown to one side, and when we walked in today and Emma said you were gone, I thought Daniel didn't respect you. I thought it was the same thing repeating again. I got angry because I got scared. Her mother nodded weakly, her voice trembling. We are sensitive to that, maybe too sensitive. The room felt softer now, but charged with emotion. Emma whispered, Mother, Father, why didn't you tell me you were struggling? Her mother looked at her with heartache. You have your own life now. We didn't want to burden you. Her father added quietly, We argued this morning. Before we came here, we said harsh things. We talked about separation. We didn't solve it. And then we came here pretending everything was normal. Daniel rubbed his forehead slowly, exhausted. So today wasn't really about us. No, her mother whispered. It was about everything we were already carrying. Daniel looked at Emma. She looked at him, both hurt but also relieved to understand the truth. I sat quietly, taking everything in. It made sense now. The sharp reactions, the cold comments, the way they judged every small thing. They weren't angry with Daniel. They were angry with each other. And the smallest spark had set everything on fire. Emma leaned forward, tears sliding down her cheeks. You should have told me. I would have listened. I would have helped. Her father looked away. You have your own marriage, your own life. We didn't want you to worry. Daniel's voice was gentle. But your pain came into our home, and it hurt all of us. Her mother broke again. I know. I'm so sorry. Emma reached across and took her mother's hand. They held each other in a silent, trembling embrace. After a long moment, her father spoke again. There's more, he said quietly, more that we haven't said. His wife closed her eyes as if the words themselves burned. Daniel sat straighter. What is it? Her father inhaled deeply, steadying himself. Emma's mother, she feels I've grown distant. She thinks I don't appreciate her. She thinks I don't listen, and maybe she's right. His wife looked at him with surprise and pain. You never said that. He nodded weakly. I didn't know how. I thought if I ignored it, the tension would fade, but it hasn't. Roan, and this morning we reached a breaking point. We said maybe we need space. Emma's breath caught. Are you separating? Her father looked at her mother. Her mother looked at the floor. We don't know yet, her father whispered. Emma covered her face with her hands. Daniel wrapped an arm around her. It will be okay, he whispered, though he didn't sound convinced. I leaned forward slightly. I'm sorry you're going through this, truly, but you must understand something. Daniel is not your enemy. Emma is not your burden. Your pain is real, but directing it toward the people who love you will only deepen it. Her father nodded. You're right, we know we were wrong today. Her mother looked at Daniel with genuine regret. We judged you too quickly. We thought you were pushing your mother away. We reacted out of fear, not truth. We apologize. Daniel nodded slowly. I accept your apology. I never meant to hurt anyone. Emma added softly, we want both of you in our lives. But not like this, not with this weight. Her father sighed deeply. You're right, and we will try to fix things, but it may take time. There was a long, quiet stillness. A moment where everyone let the heaviness settle and soften. Then her mother spoke again. Can we start over today, right now? Can we try again as a family without all this anger? Daniel gave a tired, hopeful nod. Yes, we can. Emma held his hand tightly. I want that too. Her father looked at me. And may I say, thank you. You came back in the middle of our storm and you calmed it. You didn't judge us. You didn't take sides. You simply understood. I smiled gently. I have lived long enough to know that every marriage has hidden rooms, some full of light, some full of shadows. What matters is not the shadows themselves, but whether the couple walks through them together. Her mother closed her eyes, letting the words sink in. Daniel squeezed my hand. I'm glad you're here, Mom. I smiled softly. I'm glad too. But as I looked around the room, I could feel another truth forming. Something Emma wasn't saying, something she kept holding back, and when she finally spoke again, her voice was quiet, almost afraid. There's something else, she whispered. Something I haven't told anyone, not even Daniel. Daniel turned to her in confusion. What is it? Emma looked down at her hands. Her mother watched her carefully. Her father leaned forward slightly. I held my breath. I didn't want to say anything earlier, she said softly, because everything was already too heavy. But this morning, before you called your mother, something happened, something between us. Daniel's eyebrows pulled together. Between who? Between you and me, she whispered. It's part of why everything felt so fragile today. Daniel's face drained of color. I watched them both carefully. Emma took a trembling breath. Daniel, we had an argument this morning, a bad one. And I think that's why you reacted the way you did, why you asked your mother to leave the house, why you were already nervous before my parents even arrived. Daniel froze. He closed his eyes slowly. And I knew part of today's chaos didn't begin with me. It began before I ever got the phone call. And the truth Emma was about to reveal would open a door none of us expected. The room grew quiet again, so quiet that even the small ticking of the wall clock felt painfully loud. Emma sat on the sofa with her hands clasped together, her fingers trembling slightly. Daniel looked at her with confusion mixed with worry, as if he was afraid of the words she was about to say. I sat still, watching my son's face closely. A mother can always sense when her child is bracing for something heavy, and Daniel, he was bracing with his whole heart. Finally, Emma lifted her eyes. Daniel, she whispered, please don't get upset. I'm not saying this to blame you. I'm saying it because everyone here deserves to know the truth. Today didn't start in peace, it started in tension. Her voice cracked at the last word. Daniel leaned forward. What do you mean? What happened this morning? Emma swallowed hard, her throat tightening. This morning, when you woke up, you were already stressed. You were pacing. You kept checking the time. You were worried my parents would judge everything, the house, the food, the way we arranged things. And I tried to calm you down, but you weren't listening. Daniel frowned. That's because your parents do judge everything, you know that. She nodded gently. I know, but the way you reacted, it scared me. I had never seen you like that. You kept wiping the counters even though I already cleaned them. You kept rearranging the chairs. You even checked the guest towels 3 times. My son exhaled deeply, rubbing his forehead. I just wanted things to be perfect. Emma continued, her voice soft but firm. And when I told you that perfection wasn't possible, and that we should just welcome them with warmth, you got upset with me. You said I didn't understand the pressure you were under. Daniel blinked. I don't remember being that harsh. You weren't harsh, she said quickly. You were anxious. That anxiety turned into frustration, and I absorbed all of it. Emma's mother looked down, guilt spreading on her face. We never wanted you to feel such pressure, she whispered. Emma kept speaking, her words careful and gentle. Daniel, the truth is, you were carrying the weight of their judgment and the fear that I would be disappointed in you if things went wrong, and that fear pushed you into panic. Daniel's expression softened. I didn't want to ruin anything. I know, she whispered, but then I said something I regret. Daniel looked up sharply. What did you say? Emma closed her eyes for a moment, steadying herself. I said that maybe we shouldn't have invited them this soon. I said the house wasn't ready, that the timing wasn't right. And when I said that, you looked at me like I had failed you. Her voice broke and a tear rolled down her cheek. Daniel leaned closer to her. Emma, I didn't mean to make you feel that way. She shook her head, wiping her tears quickly. I know you didn't mean it, but in that moment we were both overwhelmed. We both felt like we were sinking. Her father looked between them quietly. It seems you two were under stress long before we arrived. Emma nodded. Yes, and that stress grew. Until Daniel said something that hurt me, something that wasn't meant to hurt, but did. Daniel's face paled. What did I say? She took a shaky breath. You said maybe it would be easier if my mom wasn't here today. The words hung in the air like a cold shadow. I felt a soft ache bloom in my chest, but not out of anger, out of understanding. Daniel stared at the floor. I didn't mean it like that, Emma whispered. I know, but I asked you what you meant, and you said. She might clash with my parents. She might misunderstand something. She might think they're trying to take over. It's better if she's not here. I closed my eyes. Hearing my son's fear spoken aloud, it hurt, but it also made sense. He had been trying to protect me, but in doing so, he had created a distance none of us needed. Daniel looked up slowly, his voice shaking. I said that because I remember how stressed you were during the wedding. I thought you were still exhausted from everything. I didn't want you to face more pressure. His eyes found mine. Mom, I thought I was helping you. I gave him a gentle smile. My son, I know your heart. You were trying to protect everyone at once, but sometimes when we try to carry all the weight alone, we end up hurting the very people we're trying to protect. He blinked rapidly, his eyes glistening. Emma continued. After that, we stopped talking. We both went silent, and when your parents called saying they were 15 minutes away, you panicked again. That's when you said you were calling your mother to ask her to rest at a hotel for the night. Daniel buried his face in his hands. I really thought I was doing the right thing. Her father sighed deeply. You were acting from fear, and fear never leads to clarity. Emma nodded. And I didn't stop you. I didn't say, no, it's okay, your mother should stay here. I could have said that, but I didn't because I was scared too, scared of the day going wrong. She looked at me with honest regret, and that is why I blame myself as well. We all contributed to the confusion. Her mother reached over and gently touched her daughter's arm. Oh, my child, you were under so much pressure. Emma let out a slow breath. I think when you two arrived and saw that Daniel's mother wasn't here, it became the final spark in a room full of hidden fire. Her father nodded in agreement. When emotions are high, every small thing becomes big. Daniel looked at Emma. I'm sorry for this morning. I didn't mean to make you feel alone. Emma shook her head softly. And I'm sorry for saying the timing was wrong. That hurt you too. He reached for her hand and she took it. Their fingers intertwined slowly, carefully, as if they were rebuilding something fragile. After a long silence, I spoke gently. You both love each other, but love without communication becomes fear, and fear is the heaviest burden a home can carry. Daniel's voice trembled. Mom, I didn't want you to feel unwanted. I touched his hand lightly. I never felt unwanted, but I did feel confused, and now I understand. Emma's father leaned forward thoughtfully. There is something important you all must hear, and I say this as someone who has been married for 30 years. His voice was calm but tired. When a marriage is young, fear is normal. Fear of failing, fear of disappointing, fear of not being good enough, but love must be louder than fear. Otherwise, misunderstandings will become walls. Emma nodded slowly. Her father glanced at his wife. We let fear build a wall between us too. That's why we argued this morning. That's why we talked about separation. His wife lowered her eyes, ashamed. He continued, we thought we were protecting each other by hiding our pain, but hiding pain only makes it heavier. He looked at Daniel and Emma again. You two must learn from our mistake. Do not hide. Do not let fear decide for you. Emma's mother wiped her face. He is right, and seeing both of you struggle today, it reminded me of our early years. She sighed softly. I never wanted you to carry our pain, and yet we brought it into your home. Emma reached for her mother's hand. Mother, it's okay. We understand now. Daniel added, what matters is that we know the truth. Her father looked at him seriously. And do you know what else matters? Daniel shook his head. Respect, the older man said quietly. Not perfect behavior, not perfect days, not perfect visits. Respect for each other, for your parents, for your boundaries. Respect keeps a family standing even when emotions are high. Daniel softened. I understand. Her father continued. When I thought you were hiding your mother, I felt disrespected. That triggered my own old wounds. But now I see you were not hiding her. You were trying to manage too much alone. Emma's mother added gently, and now that we know everything. The anger is gone. Daniel let out a shaky breath, almost like a silent sob. Then Emma whispered something that made everyone pause. There is still one more thing. Daniel looked startled. Emma, what else? She hesitated. Her eyes dropped, her fingers twisted together nervously, and then she finally said it. This morning, before your parents arrived, when we argued, I told you something that I didn't mean, something that hurt both of us. Daniel held his breath. She whispered, I said, sometimes I feel like your mother comes before me. The room fell silent again. Daniel's head slowly lifted, and I could see the shock in his eyes, not anger, pain, deep, quiet pain. Emma squeezed her eyes shut. I am so sorry. I didn't mean it. I was overwhelmed. I felt alone, and those words slipped out. But ever since I said them, I have regretted them. Daniel's voice cracked. Why didn't you tell me you felt that way? Because it wasn't true, she whispered. It was fear speaking, not my heart. I felt my own heart ache, not because I felt accused, but because I understood the root of it. Fear makes people compare. Fear makes people say things that aren't real but feel real in the moment. Her father spoke softly. That sentence carries a lot of weight. Emma nodded. I know, and when I said it, I think something in Daniel broke a little. Daniel breathed out slowly. It did, because you and my mother don't compete in my heart. There is no competition. You are my wife, she is my mother. My love for each of you is different, but it never takes away from the other. Emma cried quietly. I know, and I love your mother. I respect her. I just said it out of frustration. Daniel looked at me. I didn't want you here today because I didn't want Emma to think I was choosing you over her. Emma whispered, and I didn't want your mother to think I was taking her place. I leaned forward, my voice calm and warm. My dear ones. Love is not a scale, it is not a competition. You do not lose love when someone else receives it. You do not become smaller when someone else is loved. Emma cried harder. Daniel took her hand again, squeezing it gently. I'm sorry, she whispered. I'm so sorry for everything. Daniel nodded. We will fix this together. Her parents exchanged a long look. Her mother said softly, and we will fix our marriage too, whatever it takes. Her father placed a hand over hers. We will try, we must. The room slowly exhaled. The storm was not gone, but it had lost its thunder. And for the first time that day, I felt hope begin to bloom. I did not know what I would find when I followed Daniel's in-laws into their room, but I certainly did not expect silence. Heavy silence, the kind that presses against your skin. The kind that tells you something inside this space has already broken, and the damage is deeper than anyone is ready to admit. They sat on opposite sides of the bed, her mother on the right, her father on the left, their bodies turned away from each other like two strangers forced to share the same air. Emma stood near the doorway, her hands squeezed together, her breathing uneven. Daniel had moved to stand behind me, unsure, scared, waiting for something to anchor him. For a few long seconds, no one said a word. Finally, her father looked up, eyes red, voice low. Tell her, he said to his wife. You owe our daughter the truth. His wife flinched as if the words were a slap. She didn't answer. She just stared at the floor, twisting the ring on her finger. I felt my heart tight. Whatever this was, it had been waiting for years. Her father repeated louder this time, tell her, still nothing. So he turned to Emma instead. Your mother has been hiding something from you, he said, from all of us, and I found out this morning just before we came to your house. Emma blinked. What do you mean? He swallowed hard, struggling to keep his voice steady. She hasn't loved me for a long time. She's been waiting for the right moment to leave. She even contacted a lawyer. She started the process. A soft gasp escaped Emma. Daniel leaned closer to me. His hand trembled. I could feel his fear not just for his in-laws, but for what this meant for Emma, for their marriage, for everything. Her mother finally lifted her head. Tears slid down her cheeks, but there was something else in her eyes. Exhaustion, I wasn't going to leave, she whispered. Not until after your wedding. I didn't want to ruin your life. I didn't want you to think it was your fault. Her voice cracked. I was trying to wait. Emma stepped closer, her face pale. Mom, why? Why didn't you tell us? Her mother covered her mouth with shaking fingers. Because I didn't want you to look at love the way I did, she said. I didn't want you to think marriage is just holding on to broken pieces. I didn't want my mistakes to follow you. She crumbled into tears. Her husband shook his head sharply. Mistakes, he said. You mean lies, years of lies. Her mother's shoulders collapsed at his words, and then before anyone could speak, he turned to Daniel. And you, his voice softened, but not in a gentle way, more like a man tired of fighting storms. You asking your own mother to leave the house for us, do you know how that looked? Do you know what it reminded me of? Daniel froze. Her father's eyes glassed over, filled with an old kind of hurt. My wife did the same thing to her own mother 26 years ago, he said. Sent her away, pushed her out, created a perfect image for the world to see so no one would know our family was falling apart. He let out a bitter laugh, and today we repeated the same pattern in your home, under your roof. My breath left me slowly. Suddenly, everything made sense, the tension, the sharp moments, the cracks hidden under polite smiles. This wasn't just a bad morning. This wasn't just a misunderstanding. This was a wound resurfacing. I didn't know, Daniel whispered. He stepped forward, voice breaking. I just wanted to help. I only asked my mom to leave because I thought it would make your visit easier. I didn't think it would. You didn't know, the man cut in more gently this time. I understand that. I don't blame you, but I want you to see the pattern. He turned to Emma. You married him for love, and I am proud of that, but don't repeat our mistakes. Don't hide your pain for the sake of appearances. Don't push people away just to keep the peace. Emma wiped her tears, nodding quickly. I didn't know, she whispered to her mother. I didn't know things were so bad or that you were hurting. Her mother looked up at her daughter with trembling lips. You weren't supposed to know. I thought I could keep everything together until after the visit. I thought, she shook her head, but we fought this morning. Before we arrived, I couldn't pretend anymore. Her husband added quietly, she told me she wanted out, that she hadn't loved me in years. Emma covered her mouth, shocked. Then her mother said something that made my chest ache. I didn't fall out of love with you, she whispered to her husband. I just stopped feeling anything. I don't know when it happened. But I've been lonely for a long time. Her husband closed his eyes. A long, trembling breath escaped him. I would have tried, he said. If you had told me sooner, I would have tried. Silence followed, one of the heaviest silences I've ever stood in. Everyone looked lost. Everyone looked hurt. Everyone looked like a truth they had avoided had finally risen to the surface, refusing to be pushed down again. Daniel finally spoke. Is divorce really what you want? Her mother didn't answer right away. She looked between all of us, her husband, her daughter, Daniel, and then me, as if trying to gather courage. Then she nodded. I think it is. Her husband looked down, wiping his face with a shaking hand. I don't want it, he whispered, but I also don't want to force something that's already broken. Emma fell into a chair, head in her hands. I stepped to her side and placed a gentle hand on her shoulder. She leaned into me like a child who had suddenly discovered the world wasn't as stable as she believed. And then her father turned back to me and said the one thing I never expected. I'm sorry, he said softly. You were dragged into this. Your son asked you to leave your own home because we could not face the truth inside our marriage, and now everything has spilled out in front of you. I shook my head. This isn't about me, I said gently. This is about all of you finally speaking your truth. Sometimes things fall apart loudly so the real healing can begin. He stared at me for a moment, then nodded. Emma took a shaky breath. So, what happens now? Her father looked at her mother. Her mother whispered, we tell the truth to ourselves, and then we decide how to move forward. Emma cried quietly. Daniel pulled her into his arms, and I stood there thinking about how fragile families really are. How 1 hour, just 1 hour, can open every hidden door and let years of silence escape. But I also realized something else. This moment, this painful, messy moment, might be the very thing that saves them in the long run, because hiding pain destroys families. Speaking it, even through tears, gives them a chance. Emma stayed curled into Daniel's arms, her shoulders shaking with silent tears. I could feel her heart break from across the room. It wasn't the pain of someone losing control. It was the pain of someone watching the world she believed in crack open in front of her. Her mother slowly stood from the bed, wiping her face with unsteady hands. I didn't want to hurt any of you, she whispered. I thought I was carrying this alone. I thought I was protecting you by hiding it. Her husband gave a bitter exhale. But pain shared is lighter than pain hidden. We've been pretending for so long that we forgot what honesty sounds like. She flinched at his words, then nodded slowly. I know, she said. I know I made things worse by staying silent. The room felt heavy again, not with anger, with grieving, with years of swallowed feelings finally surfacing. I found myself speaking without thinking. Silence grows like a wall, I said quietly. It starts small, then becomes something you can't climb anymore. Sometimes the hardest thing isn't breaking the wall, it's admitting you built it. Everyone looked at me, and for a moment, no one spoke. Then Emma's father walked toward the window. He stared outside with a gaze filled with memories, the type of memories that carry both love and regret. When we first married, he said softly, your mother used to sit with me for hours. We talked about everything. We dreamed together, but somewhere along the way, life got loud and we got quiet. His wife stared at him, her face softening. We stopped listening, she whispered. He nodded. We stopped seeing each other. The words hung in the air like an echo from years past. Then he turned back to his daughter, eyes tired, heart heavy. I'm not begging her to stay, he said, but I want you to know the truth. Marriages fail when two people stop reaching for each other. If you ever feel distance in your own home, don't hide it, don't pretend. Emma wiped her cheeks, her voice shaking. I won't. Her mother reached out and touched Emma's hand gently. I'm sorry you had to hear all this today, she said. I didn't want your visit to become this. Emma squeezed her mother's fingers. Maybe it needed to happen, she said. Maybe hiding it only made it worse. Her mother's lips trembled. Yes, maybe. Daniel finally spoke, voice low. What do you both need right now? Her father sighed deeply. Time, space, honesty. Her mother nodded, and kindness for all of us. The weight in the room shifted a little, not lighter, but clearer. The fog of confusion that had filled the air earlier felt thinner now. Pain had taken up most of the space, but pain spoken is always softer than pain buried. Her father suddenly turned to me. You know, seeing you here, standing beside us even when you were the one sent away, it showed me something. I frowned softly. What do you mean? You didn't react with anger or bitterness, he said. You didn't blame your son. You didn't make this moment about yourself. I admire that. I felt a lump in my throat. I don't want anyone to feel guilty, I said. Especially not Daniel. He thought he was doing the right thing. He didn't know this would happen. He shook his head. No, but it reminded me of something, of how easy it is to repeat old mistakes when we don't heal from them. He exhaled. I don't want Emma to push people away the way we did. I don't want her to hide things. I want her to have a different ending than ours. Emma's mother touched her husband's arm gently. I didn't want this ending, she said. I didn't choose it lightly. He looked at her for a long, quiet moment. I know, the softness in his voice surprised all of us. He stepped closer, not touching her, but standing close enough that she could feel his presence. If divorce is what you truly want, he said, I won't fight you. I won't make this harder, but I want us to part with truth this time, not silence. Tears filled her eyes again. That's all I ever wanted, she whispered. Even though they stood on opposite sides of a decision that would break their marriage, there was something gentle between them, a recognition of years lived together, of memories they could not erase, of love that had slowly faded but still left traces of warmth behind. Emma finally stood, wiping her face one last time. Please, she said softly, can we all sit? I feel like we've been holding our breath for hours. We gathered in the small seating area of the room. No one spoke for a few minutes. We simply breathed in the same quiet space, letting the storm settle, letting the air clear. Then Emma's mother spoke again. I want to explain something, she said slowly. Not to justify anything, just so you understand. We waited. I didn't fall out of love suddenly, she said. It happened slowly, quietly, through years of feeling unseen, years of pretending I was okay, years of being afraid to say I wasn't happy. Her husband's eyes softened, though pain flickered in them. And I thought I was doing everything right, he said. Working hard, providing, being steady. I didn't realize you needed something different. She nodded gently. I needed to talk, she whispered. I needed you to hear me, not fix me, just hear me. He swallowed. I'm sorry I didn't. She looked up at him. And I'm sorry I didn't tell you sooner. The air shifted again. Pain remained, but something like peace hovered in the background. Not peace from resolution, but peace from honesty. As I watched them, two people standing at the edge of ending a marriage, I realized something powerful. Sometimes relationships don't fall apart because of one big mistake. Sometimes they crumble because no one notices the small things, the quiet hurts, the silent disappointments, the moments when love needs a voice but fear keeps it quiet, and that more than anything was what brought us here. Her mother finally looked at all of us. I don't know what happens next, she said softly, but today. I told the truth, and maybe that is the first step. Her husband nodded slowly. Yes, the first step. Daniel wrapped an arm around Emma. Emma leaned her head against his shoulder, and for the first time since arriving that morning, the room felt steady, still sad, still fragile, but honest. And sometimes honesty is the start of healing, even when the path forward leads in two different directions. I thought things would feel lighter after the truth filled the room, but instead everything felt heavier, as if speaking the truth made everyone aware of just how deep the wounds were. Sometimes pain is quiet until you name it. Then it grows loud because now it wants to be tended to. Now it wants to be healed. After a few minutes of silence, Emma's father cleared his throat and stood up. He wasn't a tall man, but at that moment he looked smaller, almost fragile. The kind of fragile that comes from years of holding things inside. I need some air, he murmured. Emma reached for him, but he raised a gentle hand. I'm all right, I just need a moment to breathe outside of this room. He stepped out, closing the door softly behind him. His wife stayed seated, staring down at her hands as if they were strangers she'd only just noticed. She rubbed her thumb slowly across the wedding band she still wore, a ring that once promised a lifetime. A ring that had outlived the love that forged it. Emma watched her mother with eyes full of questions, questions too heavy to ask all at once. Daniel glanced at me, unsure of what to do, what to say, how to make any of this better. I didn't know either. Some moments in life are not meant to be fixed, they are meant to be witnessed. Emma finally broke the quiet. Mom, when did you first start feeling this way? Her mother looked up. Her eyes were soft and tired, like someone who had walked through a very long night. It was after your 10th birthday, she said softly. Your father lost his job. He was so worried, so stressed. I tried to be supportive. I tried to be strong, but we stopped talking. We only talked about bills and plans and what needed to be done. I thought it was temporary. I thought we would connect again once life calmed down. She let out a breath, but we never did. The silence stayed. And I didn't know how to break it. Emma frowned deeply. You never talked about this. You always seemed fine. Her mother shook her head gently. I wasn't fine. I was functioning. There's a difference. I felt my chest tighten at her words, functioning, a word so many women live inside without realizing how lonely it is. When did it turn into wanting a divorce? Emma asked. Her mother hesitated. It happened a few years ago. I tried to ignore the feeling. I tried to push it away. But last year, I realized I had spent more years unhappy than happy, and I couldn't pretend anymore. Emma swallowed hard. Why didn't you tell me? Because, her mother whispered, I didn't want you to lose faith in love. I didn't want you to think marriage was hopeless. I wanted you to start your life without carrying our mistakes on your shoulders. Silence wrapped the room again. Then Emma turned toward me. Did you ever feel this way in your own marriage? My heart stopped for a moment. It wasn't a question I expected. It wasn't one I had prepared an answer for, but maybe it was time for my own truth too. I nodded slowly. Yes, I whispered. I did. Daniel looked at me startled. Mom, you never said anything. I gave him a faint smile because you were young, and some things parents keep quiet not because they want to hide, but because they want to protect their children's hearts. Emma's mother looked at me, almost relieved that someone understood. What happened? Emma asked gently. I took a breath and let my memories surface. Your father was a good man, I began, hardworking, responsible, kind, but sometimes good people get lost too. I folded my hands on my lap. When Daniel was small, your father worked long hours. He was always tired, always distracted. We weren't arguing, we weren't fighting, but we weren't connected either. We were like two passengers on the same train, side by side, but going through the journey alone. I looked at Daniel softly. I stayed because you were young. I stayed because I hoped things would change. I stayed because I believed marriage meant holding on. Emma's mother wiped a tear. I understand that, she whispered. Daniel put a hand on my arm. But you and Dad, you made it work eventually. I smiled gently. Yes, but it took effort. It took honesty. It took both of us being willing to meet in the middle. It took me telling him I was lonely and him listening, really listening for the first time in years. Emma leaned closer. So it can work if two people try? I nodded. Yes, if two people try, but it takes both. One person cannot hold a marriage alone. Her mother covered her face, breaking again. That's exactly how I felt, she whispered, like I was holding everything alone. I know, I said gently. There was a soft knock on the door. Emma's father walked back in. His shoulders were tense, but his breathing was calmer. I'm sorry, he said quietly. I didn't mean to walk away like that. His wife shook her head. It's okay. He looked at her then, really looked, as if trying to see the woman he had loved for years, not the silence that grew between them. I want to understand, he said. I want to know what I missed. She bit her lip. You didn't do something wrong, she said. This didn't happen because of one mistake. It happened because of 1,000 small moments. It happened because we forgot to keep choosing each other. His face faltered. I never stopped choosing you, he said. I know, she whispered. But you chose work, you chose being strong, you chose being the provider, and I chose being the caregiver, being the planner, being the emotional support. Somewhere in the middle of all those roles, we forgot to choose each other as partners. He stepped closer. Can we fix it? Her breath caught. I don't know. Honesty in her voice sliced through the room. He nodded, accepting the truth he didn't want but needed to face. Daniel suddenly sat forward. I don't want you both to feel trapped, he said, but I also don't want you to give up if there's still something there. Her mother gave him a warm, sad smile. You're a good man, Daniel, but this is not about giving up. It's about acknowledging what is real. If we stay together out of fear, we will only hurt each other more. Her husband sat beside her. And if we separate out of pain, he said softly, we might regret not trying. They stared at each other, not with anger, not with blame, but with years of memories flowing between them. Love didn't disappear completely. It was still there, small and tired, but real. The question was whether it was enough. Emma wiped her eyes and spoke very softly. Maybe you don't have to decide today. Her mother nodded with relief. I don't want to decide today. Her father echoed the same. Neither do I, Daniel squeezed Emma's shoulder. That's okay, you can take your time. There was a shift then, a fragile peace settling like dust after a long storm, not a resolution, not an ending, just a pause, a breath, a moment to rest before the next step. Emma's father turned to me again. Thank you for coming back, he said. I know you weren't supposed to be here. I know you were asked to leave, but your presence, it helped. I placed a hand on my heart. I'm glad I came back, I said softly. Family isn't about being perfect, it's about showing up. Emma nodded slowly. And sometimes families fall apart because no one shows up at the right time. Her mother added, and sometimes families heal when one person shows up unexpectedly. We all smiled faintly. It was then that I realized something important. The moment Daniel asked me to leave, I thought my presence was a burden. But maybe, without meaning to, my absence created the space for everything to unravel, for the truth to come out, and my return helped them face it together. Life has strange timing. After a few minutes, Emma spoke again. Should we go downstairs, maybe get some tea, maybe breathe? Her mother nodded. Her father agreed. The heaviness had not disappeared, but it had loosened its grip. Emma's mother stood up and walked toward me. I know this wasn't your burden to carry, she said. I'm sorry you had to see us like this. I gently touched her arm. Truth is never something to be ashamed of. It's the first step toward healing. She held my hand briefly, as if drawing strength from it. We began making our way out of the room slowly, quietly, like people who had walked through a storm and were grateful for even a small moment of calm. As we reached the stairs, Emma's father paused beside me. You know, he said gently, you raised your son well. I felt warmth spread in my chest. Thank you, I whispered, but he added softly, you also deserve respect. You deserve to be included, not pushed aside. I nodded, my throat tight. I know, I said, and Daniel knows too. He's already hurting from that choice. He gave a sad smile. We all make choices that come from fear. What matters is what we do after. I looked ahead at my son. He was holding Emma's hand. He looked tired, but he also looked like a man who wanted to learn, who wanted to do better. And I realized something. Even though this day had been painful, confusing, overwhelming, it was also a turning point. Not just for Emma's parents, but for Daniel, for Emma, for me, because sometimes the hardest truths lead us toward the most important lessons. We walked downstairs together, slowly, quietly, as a group of people who had been broken open but not destroyed. The healing had not begun yet, but the silence was finally gone. I wish I could say that everything felt lighter after that night, but the truth is my mind kept replaying every moment like I was living it all over again. The hotel hallway, my daughter-in-law standing still, crying, the phone call that shook my world, the look on my son's face when he realized the truth. Some stories heal with time, some stories hurt more before they heal, and mine, I was still right in between those two places. For days after returning home, the house felt different. I walked from room to room, and each space carried a sound that wasn't really there, like echoes of conversations that never happened or ones I wished had happened sooner. I made tea every morning, the same cup, the same chair, the same quiet, but the silence felt heavier. Not lonely, just thoughtful, like it wanted me to sit with everything until I understood it. And sometimes understanding comes slowly. It took my son almost a week before he came to talk to me again, really talk, not the broken, guilty words he had spoken that night, but something calmer, something he had finally processed. He came into my room without knocking, the way he used to when he was small. Mom, he said softly, are you awake? I nodded. Yes, come sit. He sat beside me on the edge of the bed. His shoulders were tense, but his face was softer than before, less lost, more grounded. He leaned forward, elbows on his knees, staring at the floor before lifting his head. I know everything exploded too fast, he said quietly, and I know you didn't deserve any of it. I watched him carefully. He had always been a quiet thinker, but when he spoke now, I heard the weight in every syllable. I keep going over the last year, he continued. Not just what happened that night, everything, the signs I ignored, the moments I convinced myself everything was normal. That's what we do when we love someone, I whispered. We try to make sense of things we can't see clearly. He nodded slowly. There's one thing that scares me, he said. What if I become like her? What if I fail someone the way she failed me? I touched his hand. You won't. How can you be sure? Because you're asking that question. He looked at me with softened eyes as if something had just been released inside him. He exhaled deeply, almost shakily. I should have protected you more, he said suddenly. I should have known something wasn't right when she insisted you go to a hotel. I should have stood up for you. You were trying to keep peace, I said gently, trying to be a good husband. But I hurt you. You did, I said honestly, but you also apologized, and you didn't hide. You showed up when it mattered. He nodded, swallowing hard. Then he asked the question I had been quietly expecting. Do you think I should end the marriage? I breathed in deeply, giving space between his question and my answer. Son, you already know what I think, but what matters is what you feel when you're honest with yourself. He rubbed his face with both hands. It feels like everything in me wants to let go, he admitted, but a part of me is scared because letting go feels like failing. No, I said softly. Failing is staying in a place where your heart is breaking slowly. He stayed silent for a long time. Then he nodded with a quiet certainty I hadn't seen in him before. You're right, he whispered. Over the next few days, everything began shifting. His wife moved back to her parents' house while they talked things through, though the truth was both families knew the separation was not temporary, but something unexpected happened. Her parents reached out to me. It started with a short message from her mother. Could we visit you? We need to talk. I stared at the message for a long moment. My stomach tightened. I didn't know if they wanted to blame me or defend their daughter or try to negotiate something for the sake of appearances. But I agreed. They arrived the next afternoon, quiet, hesitant, almost embarrassed. Her mother spoke first. We want to apologize, she said. Truly, her father nodded. We should have intervened long ago. We should have stopped her from making decisions she had no right to make. I listened, calm, still, patient. Her mother continued. We knew her marriage was breaking. We knew she wasn't treating him well, but we didn't know she was trying to push you out. Her father's voice lowered. And after that night, after everything, we looked at each other and realized something was deeply wrong in our daughter's marriage, something only divorce could fix. It was the same sentence they had said that night at the hotel, and hearing it again didn't shock me this time. It only made something inside me settle, like the last piece of a puzzle finally falling into place. I nodded gently. Thank you for coming and thank you for being honest. Her mother began crying, not loud, but quietly like someone who carried guilt they didn't know how to release. I should have taught her better, she whispered. I should have corrected her years ago. No parent is perfect, I said softly. Kids make choices we never expect. She wiped her tears quickly. We won't force him to stay married to her, she said. We won't interfere. We won't make excuses. Her father added, We only want you to know we are not against you. I smiled faintly. I never thought you were. When they left, the house felt still again, but lighter, like something that had been hanging in the air had finally settled. 1 week later, my son came to me again. Mom, he said gently, can we go somewhere? I want to talk, but not here. Of course. We drove to the lake, the same place he used to ride his bicycle when he was 10. The same place where he told me about his first crush. The same place where I stood the day he got married, thinking his life was finally blooming. We walked along the water, listening to the soft sound of small waves touching the shore. After a few minutes, he spoke. I filed the divorce papers today. I looked at him. His face wasn't bitter. It wasn't angry. It was at peace, a peace I hadn't seen in many months. I'm proud of you, I said. He nodded, breathing in the cold air. I stayed too long, he whispered. I held on even when everything inside me was falling apart. We stay, I said softly, because we hope things will get better. He looked at me slowly. Do you think I wasted years of my life? No, I answered firmly. You gained wisdom, strength, and clarity. You learned who you are. That's never a waste. He looked toward the water. I thought marriage meant enduring everything, he said, even when it hurt. Marriage means growing together, I replied. Not shrinking alone. He closed his eyes for a moment, letting my words settle. When he opened them again, the wind moved gently across the lake, and he whispered something so quiet I almost missed it. I feel free, I smiled. You should. As weeks passed, our home returned to a calmer rhythm. My son moved through life with more purpose, more softness, more awareness. He apologized again, not because he had to, but because he wanted to make sure I never doubted my place in his life again. I began noticing small changes in him. He woke up earlier. He cooked more often. He went for long walks alone, not to escape, but to breathe. He laughed more, even at small things. And when he talked to me, I didn't see regret anymore. I saw gratitude. One evening, he made dinner, something he rarely did before. As we sat together, he asked, "Mom, do you ever feel angry at her?" I thought for a moment. Sometimes, I admitted. Sometimes I feel angry that she tried to push me out of your life. Sometimes I feel angry that you questioned yourself because of her behavior. He nodded. I'm angry too. But anger isn't a place you should live, I said softly. It's just a place you pass through. He smiled slightly. You always have a quote ready. I laughed quietly. Old age gives you one or two. We ate in silence for a moment. Then he said something that warmed my heart more than anything. Mom, I want you to stay with me. Forever, no matter what happens in my life next. Are you sure? I asked gently. Yes, he said with certainty. You're my family, my home. And those words, they filled something inside me that I didn't realize had been empty. But the story didn't end there. Life has a way of surprising you when you least expect it. Months after the divorce was finalized, something unexpected happened, something that reminded me that endings are rarely just endings. They are often beginnings wearing heavy coats. One afternoon, my doorbell rang. I wasn't expecting anyone. When I opened the door, I found my daughter-in-law standing there, alone, nervous, eyes swollen from crying. "Can I speak with you?" she asked softly. I stepped aside and let her in. She sat quietly in the living room, hands trembling slightly, breathing shallow. After a long silence, she finally spoke. "I'm sorry," she whispered, "for everything." I looked at her not with anger, not with pity, but with the calm acceptance that comes when time has done its work. "I know," I said gently, her voice cracked. "I ruined everything." "You made mistakes," I said softly. "You didn't ruin his life, you taught him." Her tears fell again. "I lost him," she whispered, "and I know it's my fault." I didn't say anything, because sometimes silence is the only response needed. After a long pause, she continued, "The night at the hotel. The way I treated you, I don't even know why I did it. I was angry. I was insecure. I thought his love for you meant he wouldn't love me enough." "That's not how love works," I said gently. She nodded slowly, wiping her face with her sleeve. "I know that now, and what do you want from me?" I asked softly. She inhaled shakily. "Nothing," she said. "I just needed to say sorry. I needed to face you." I nodded. "Thank you for coming." She stood to leave, shoulders curved inward, looking smaller than I had ever seen her. Before she walked out, she turned back one last time. "Please tell him he deserved better than me." I didn't answer. She left quietly, and when the door closed behind her, I felt something settle inside me, not forgiveness exactly, but closure. A soft kind of ending. That night, I sat with my son and told him she had come. He didn't react with anger or frustration. Simply nodded and said, "I hope she finds peace." And in that moment, I realized something. My son had grown. He had healed. He had stepped out of a storm that could have drowned him. And I had survived it with him, not as a victim, not as a burden, but as a mother who refused to disappear from her child's life. Life has a quiet way of settling after chaos. Not suddenly, not dramatically, but gently, like dust that floats in the sunlight until it finally lands where it belongs. Weeks passed after my daughter-in-law's visit. The house was peaceful again, but it wasn't the same kind of peace I used to feel. This peace carried a story within it, a story of hurt, of truth, of endings and new beginnings. Sometimes I would sit near the window, watching the late afternoon light, thinking about everything that had happened. My son's marriage, his guilt, her fear, my silence, the night at the hotel, the morning after, the divorce, her apology, and the quiet acceptance that followed. Healing isn't loud, it's slow, it's patient, and sometimes it feels almost invisible. But it happens without asking, without pushing, without warning. And in our home, healing had finally begun. One morning, my son knocked on my door. "Mom," he called softly. "Are you awake?" I smiled. "I'm always awake when you knock." He walked in, holding 2 cups of tea, one for himself, one for me. A small habit we developed after everything calmed down. He placed the cup on my bedside table and sat next to me. "I've been thinking," he said. I laughed gently. "You say that a lot these days." I know, he said with a shy smile, but this time it's something good, or at least I hope so. And what is it? He took a deep breath. I want us to move, he said, to a new house, a new place with fresh energy, somewhere that feels like a new start. I looked at him carefully. You want to leave this house? I think it would be good for both of us, he said. Too many memories here, and not all of them are good. I touched his hand gently. If that's what you want, then I'll support you. He exhaled with relief. Thank you. We sat there for a moment in warm quietness, the kind of silence that doesn't feel empty, just comfortable. Then he added something unexpected. I already found a few places for us to go see. I raised my eyebrows. You planned all this without telling me? He laughed. Only because I didn't want to get your hopes up unless it felt right. I smiled. You've changed. He nodded slowly. Maybe I had to. The next Sunday, we spent most of the day visiting different houses. Some were too small, some were too loud, some didn't feel like home at all. But the fourth house we visited, something about it stayed with me the moment I stepped inside. It wasn't big or fancy. It wasn't modern or luxurious, but it felt warm, lived in, safe. There were two bedrooms, a small garden with flowers already blooming, and a little veranda where you could sit with a cup of tea and listen to the wind. My son noticed how I kept touching the edge of the table, the walls, the window frames, as if I was trying to feel the story of each corner. You like it? He asked gently. It feels peaceful, I whispered. He nodded. I thought so too. We walked through the house again, slower this time, imagining where our things would go. The kitchen felt like a place where warm meals would be shared. The living room felt like a place where stories would be told. The garden felt like a place where quiet moments would bloom. When we stepped outside again, my son looked at me. If you want it, he said, I'll make the call today. I smiled softly. Yes, let's take it. His eyes softened with relief and quiet happiness. A new beginning, he said. A new beginning, I repeated. Moving took longer than we expected, but it wasn't stressful. It felt cleansing. Each box we packed was a piece of our past that we sorted through, keeping what mattered, letting go of what didn't. I found old photos of my son as a child, smiling so widely that it made my heart ache with nostalgia. I found old letters, old clothes, old recipes, old memories. And in those moments of sorting through the pieces of our lives, I realized something. We had survived something that could have broken us. We had not only survived it, but come out stronger, gentler, more aware. One evening, while we were wrapping dishes, my son suddenly paused, holding a plate in his hands. You know, he said softly, I used to think that staying with someone was the best way to honor marriage, even if it hurt. And now, I asked. And now, he said, setting the plate down carefully, I realize marriage isn't about staying, it's about growing. And if you're not growing, you're shrinking. I nodded. You learned it the hard way, but you learned it well. He smiled faintly, and for a moment I saw the little boy he once was, the one who waited outside his school for me with bright eyes, the one who hugged me without fear, the one who trusted me completely. And in that moment I felt something warm inside me, not pride, but gratitude. Gratitude that he still came to me, even as an adult, not as a child running to his mother, but as a man choosing to lean on her. We moved into the new house 2 weeks later. The first night we spent there was quiet, filled with the rustle of unpacked boxes and the smell of fresh paint. My son stood in the doorway of my new room. Is it okay? He asked. I looked around, the soft light, the open window, the gentle space that was mine. It's perfect, I said. He smiled. Good. That night, for the first time in a long time, I slept peacefully. No heavy memories pressing on my mind, no echo of old conversations. No guilt, no fear, no sorrow, just stillness, just rest, just the gentle awareness that life had given us a second chance to build something better. Over the next few weeks, our routine found a soft rhythm. My son started reading more. He cooked dinner 3 nights a week. He began jogging in the mornings. He talked to me openly, with no hesitation, no defensiveness, no guilt, just honesty. Sometimes he would come home with flowers for the little garden. Sometimes he would bring home fresh fruit. Sometimes he would sit beside me on the veranda, sipping tea, watching the sky without saying a word. It was simple, it was quiet, it was enough. One evening, we were sitting outside when he suddenly asked a question that took me by surprise. Mom, do you ever miss her? I looked at the sky for a long moment before answering. I miss who I hoped she would be, I said gently, but I don't miss how she treated you. He nodded. Yeah, I miss the version of her I created in my mind. That's the version you loved, I said, not the one she became. Or maybe not the one she always was, he whispered. Sometimes the truth arrives softly, like a whisper you almost ignore. But healing isn't only about looking back, it's also about opening the door to what lies ahead. One afternoon, my son came home with a thoughtful expression. He sat across from me at the table, hands folded, eyes steady. "I want to tell you something," he said. I set down my cup of tea. "Go on." "I met someone." I didn't react immediately. I didn't smile. I didn't ask questions. I simply waited for him to continue. "She works at the office across from mine," he said. "Her name is Liana. That's a beautiful name." He nodded, a small smile pulling at his lips. "She's kind," he said softly, "really kind and gentle and calm, and she listens. She really listens." I watched the way he spoke, not with excitement, not with nervous energy, but with a softness that felt new. "Does she know about your past?" I asked. "Yes," he said. "I told her everything, and she didn't flinch. She didn't make me feel broken." "That means she sees you clearly," I said. He nodded again. "Do you like her?" I asked quietly. His smile spread slowly across his face, not wide but tender. "Yes," he said, "I do." My heart warmed for him. "This time," he added, "I want to move slowly, carefully, honestly." "That's the best way," I said. He leaned back in his chair, breathing deeply, almost peacefully. "I'm not afraid anymore," he said, and hearing him say that felt like the final step in a long, painful journey. Weeks turned into months, and Liana slowly became a gentle presence in our lives. She would visit sometimes, always polite, always warm. She brought small gifts, a plant, a jar of honey, a loaf of bread she baked herself. She never tried to step into my space or fill any roles. She simply existed in her own quiet way, and that quietness blended naturally into our home. My son smiled more when she was around. He spoke differently, not guarded, not hesitant, just real. One evening after she left, he came to sit beside me. "Mom," he said softly, "do you think it's too soon?" "Too soon for what?" "For me to feel this way." I turned to him, placing my hand on his. "Love doesn't run on a calendar," I said gently. "It follows healing, not time." Exhaled slowly. "I just want to do it right this time," he whispered. "You will," I said, "because now you know what wrong looks like." He laughed softly through his nose. "That's true." Things continued unfolding naturally, slowly, softly, without pressure, without fear. One Saturday morning, while I was watering the garden, my son walked up to me with a thoughtful expression. "Mom," he said, "there's something I want to show you." He took me to the small veranda we had decorated with cushions and plants. On the table was a little wooden box. "Open it," he said. Inside the box was a simple silver ring, delicate, elegant, understated. I looked up at him. "You want to propose?" He nodded, but his voice trembled. "Yes," he whispered, "but I'm scared." "Of what?" "Of choosing wrong again." "You didn't choose wrong the first time," I said gently. "You just didn't know then what you know now." He closed his eyes, breathing slowly. "Does she make you feel peaceful?" I asked. "Yes." "Does she make you feel seen?" "Yes." "Does she make you feel safe?" "Yes." "Then your heart already knows the answer, son." He opened his eyes, and for the first time in a long time, I saw nothing but clarity in them. "I want a future with her," he said softly. "Then choose it," I whispered, "and choose it without fear." That night, I lay in bed thinking about everything: the past, the present, the future, love lost, love found, pain endured, healing achieved. I thought about how life rarely gives us smooth paths. It gives us broken ones, twisted ones, unpredictable ones. But sometimes those broken paths lead exactly where we were meant to be. My son had walked through something painful, something heavy, something unfair, but he had come out stronger, kinder, more aware, and more ready for real love, not love built on fear, not love built on control, not love built on appearances, but love built on truth. And truth is the only place where love survives. When I look back now, I sometimes sit quietly on my porch in the early morning when the air is cool and the world has not fully woken up, and I let the memories roll through me like a slow, gentle wave. I think about everything that happened with my son, with his in-laws, with that strange day that started with confusion and ended with truth. And I hold all of it with a heart that is softer now. Softer, but also stronger. Life has a way of surprising us. Sometimes it breaks us open just enough for light to enter. Sometimes people hurt us without meaning to. And sometimes, like in my case, love shows itself on a day when everything seems to be falling apart. I remember the hotel room. I remember pacing the carpet, unsure if I should feel offended or patient. I remember the phone call that pulled me back into their home like a storm pulling in a loose branch. I remember seeing my son on the floor, holding his crying wife, trying to shield her from the shouting of her own parents. And I remember how the whole world felt like it was shaking, then settling again, piece by fragile piece. In the days that followed, things became calmer, though calm does not always mean simple. My son checked on me every day, quietly, gently. He no longer assumed I was a problem he needed to hide. He no longer tried to choose between me and his wife. Instead, he tried to bridge something broken but not lost. And Alina, she would bring me tea when she visited. She always brought 2 cups, even if she only drank half of hers. She spoke softly, as if afraid the wrong word might make everything cave in again. But she was trying. That meant more to me than anything. Her parents, on the other hand, disappeared for a while. Not completely, they still called Alina, still asked questions, still tried to find a path back into her life. But something in them had changed. Maybe pride had cracked, maybe regret had seeped in, I cannot say, but whatever it was, their tone was different. They did not ask to divorce each other again. That moment had been born of anger and shame. But they did something far more important. They stopped pretending to be perfect. And sometimes that is the hardest step a person can take. As for me, I realized I had spent so many years being afraid of being seen as difficult. Afraid of being unwanted, afraid of taking up too much space in my son's new life. I thought staying silent made things easier for him, but silence can be a prison too, so I began speaking up gently, honestly, in the small places where it mattered. One evening, I sat with my son on his back steps. The sun was setting, painting the sky with soft gold. He leaned forward, elbows on his knees, and said quietly, "Mom, I'm sorry for how I treated you. I didn't know how to juggle everything." I felt pulled in too many directions. I touched his arm. "You're learning," I said. "We all are," he nodded, eyes shimmering a little. "I just want everyone to get along," and I smiled. No family gets everything right, but when people try, that's enough. I meant it, maybe for the first time. There were no villains in our story, just people carrying heavy expectations, people trying to build a life, people afraid of losing each other. And sometimes those fears collide in messy, painful ways. But love, real love, can survive mess. It just needs honesty to breathe. Months passed. We settled into a new rhythm, one where I no longer stood at the edge of their life, waiting to be invited in. I became part of things, not in a loud way, but in a steady, comforting way. The way a warm lamp fills a room without demanding attention. Alina's parents eventually apologized to her, not in dramatic speeches, but in small, careful steps, acts that were slow and sometimes clumsy, but real. They even apologized to me, though they did it nervously, as if unsure whether I would accept it. I did, not because they deserved it, but because forgiveness frees the one who gives it, and I needed that freedom. One afternoon, Alina held my hands and whispered, "Thank you for not giving up on us." I smiled gently. Families don't give up. They bend, they break, they heal, but they don't give up. She nodded, wiping the corner of her eye, and for the first time I felt not like an outsider, but like a mother whose presence mattered. There were still hard days, there always are. But the difference was that now, when something went wrong, no one tried to push me away or hide me in a hotel room. Instead, we faced things together, imperfect but united. And I learned something through it all, something simple but powerful. If you let fear guide your actions, you end up hurting the people you love most. But if you let love guide you, even the hardest conversations can lead to healing. I'm not perfect. My son is not perfect. His in laws are not perfect. But we are a family now, a real one, not a polished picture for the world to admire. A real family argues. A real family misunderstands. A real family apologizes. A real family grows, and when I think of that day, the hotel, the shouting, the tears, I no longer feel hurt. I feel grateful because it was the day everything finally changed. The day truth came out. The day walls cracked just enough for hearts to open again. The day we stopped pretending and started becoming a family. And in the quiet moments of my life now, when the sun rises or the house is still, I whisper a soft thank you, not for what happened, but for what it allowed us to become. A little wiser, a little humbler, a little closer, and a lot more honest. Did you like the story? And which city are you listening from? Let's meet in the comments. If you like the story, you can support me by sending a super thanks so I can keep bringing more stories like this. Thank you so much for your sweet support. I'm looking forward to your comments on the story. On the screen, you can see life stories that I highly recommend. There's so much more on my channel. Don't forget to subscribe. See you in the next life story with love and respect.